Hello everyone, so let's continue with assessment and now we're going to concentrate on assessment tools or instruments. Assessment instruments allows us to observe and register on the achievements and difficulties of our students, and this allows us to create the correct instrument according to our students' needs. We're going to concentrate on rubrics specifically because they are very useful tools to assess students. And when creating or thinking about the scoring criteria that we're going to use to assess students' communicative skills, we need to provide information on those aspects that we consider meaningful or significant, such as fluency, grammar, vocabulary, due time and date. What is it that we want to assess? Then the criteria needs to capture and represent aspects of something that is not directly accessible by just paying attention to students' behavior. And finally, the criteria needs to be precise, yes, and avoid ambiguity. Right. Among the many benefits of using rubrics when creating them is that they allow us to avoid being subjective. They also create a sense of fairness in our students. They provide clear and defined goals, and they also show students what is that is going to be assessed. Remember that, as I said in the previous video, it's highly important to share with our students what our expectations are. What they are expected to do, what they are expected to show. Right. So, as regards rubrics, we can say that they are a coherent set of criteria for students' work that include descriptions of levels of performance quality in the criteria. Yes, the emphasis of rubrics is on the quality of students' learning process. We have three main types of rubrics, yes, holistic, analytical, and checklists. They are usually designed as a grid type structure, and they contain three main elements. The criteria, which refers to the requirements upon which students will be rated or graded. The descriptors, which make reference to the information that indicates the abilities that students have to master, and the levels of performance or standards, which make reference to the level of satisfaction acquired by students. So we're going to start with holistic rubrics, and we can say that they are single criteria rubrics. They are one-dimensional, and they are used to assess students' overall achievement. They are achievements in general. And performance descriptors are often written in paragraphs or full sentences. So let's take a look at the following example. So here we have the levels of performance. So we have 4 levels: above average, sufficient, developing, and needs improvement. This would be a student that hasn't passed the activity, and this would be like the best student. And take a look at the descriptors, yes, or performance descriptors, yes. We have 3 descriptors which are written in full sentences, yes. The descriptors are all the same, yes, in each level of performance, yes, but with slight differences. For example, information is presented logically and naturally at all times, yes. Insufficient, we have exactly the same, but is mostly presented logically and naturally. And then in developing, we have information is presented in a way that can be followed, but with some difficulty. Information is disorganized, causing the audience to have difficulty following the author's ideas. So by making slight changes, we can graduate the level of performance. Right, then we have analytic rubrics. Yes, they are 2-dimensional rubrics. Yes, and they assess students' achievements based on multiple criteria. Yes, for instance, we have this one, which has the criteria. Yes, here on the left. Due time and date, intelligibility, organization of the information, use of specific vocabulary and expressions, use of correct grammatical structures. Then we have the levels of performance or standards, yes, here on top. Excellent, well done, good, and needs improvement, yes. And the descriptors, yes, which are also graduated. And you, in this case, you also have the percentage. So that once you finish checking the activity, yes, you can write the percentage and have the final score. So let's take a look at the descriptors, yes, and how I have graduated them. So information is well organized, is very well organized, sorry, and in accordance with the given task. In well done, information is quite well organized and in accordance with the given task. In good, information is not well organized or in accordance with the given task. And finally, the information is disorganized and incomplete. It does not respect the given task. So again, by making a few changes, you can have the different levels of performance. Right. Finally, checklists are a very different type of rubric. The decisions here are binary, yes, because we have only 2 options, good, bad, yes, no, right, wrong, present, absent. And they tend to measure participation and completion of a task rather than the skills that have been achieved. And something else that I wanted to add is that if you have a holistic and an analytical rubric, you can use the same criteria, yes, in the checklist. Okay, so here we have the criteria. The paper is presented in due time and date. There's no need to improve or add anything. Handwriting is legible and neat. There are few to no spelling mistakes. Information is well organized and in accordance with the given task. It follows the model texts. And the levels of performance, only 2. Yes, binary decision, yes or no. The main disadvantage of checklists is that they do not provide a detailed feedback. They are not judging the quality of what students have learned. Yes, so we should be careful. In my own personal opinion, analytical rubrics take a lot of time to be created, yes, but they are the most useful ones, especially for students, because they have a clear descriptions of those skills or abilities that have been mastered and those who have not. Okay, so here you have a chart, yes, with the advantages and disadvantages of each rubric that you can then that you can later read. Yes, but I wanted to give you some tips, yes, to create a rubric. The first one is to think about the aspects that you want to assess. Is it that I want to assess intelligibility? Do I want to assess language, grammar? So what is it that I want to and that I want my students to master? Then we should decide upon the standards that we are going to use to assess students and the type of rubric I want to use. Yes, remember that we should create a rubric that is as precise as possible. The criteria and the descriptors need to be precise. Remember that each criterion or the criteria and descriptor should start with the same type of word, either a noun, a verb, or an adjective. For example, pronunciation is intelligible at all times. Vocabulary is well used and varied. We have to share the rubrics at the very beginning of the task. Yes, remember that we need to share this beforehand. And it will take us 2 or 3 times to read the rubrics with our students, but to read and explain the rubric to our students, but then they will get used to it. And remember that rubrics do not replace our comments. We should leave a space, yes, at the end of the rubric to make some qualitative feedback, to make some positive remarks, then highlight some aspects to be improved, and finally finish with some positive comments once again. Okay, so hope you have learned about assessment and that you have found these videos useful.